Title suggestion: Why your best decisions are wrong. According to the I Ching, 3,000 years ago, a king sat in a damp, silent dungeon, waiting for an execution that seemed inevitable. His name was King One. He had been imprisoned by a tyrant who feared his wisdom. Most men in that position would have spent their final days in prayer or despair. Instead, One did something that would change the course of human history. He took a set of ancient, cryptic symbols, simple lines of broken and unbroken marks, and he began to organize them. He wasn't just passing the time. He was mapping the very fabric of reality. He was creating a code that predicts your next mistake before you even think of making it. You are about to make a decision, perhaps a career move, a relationship choice, or a financial risk that your competitors and your enemies are hoping you make. They are counting on you to follow the obvious path. But the code written in that dungeon 3,000 years ago says the obvious path is a trap. Today, we decode the I Ching, not as a book of fortune-telling, but as the ultimate manual for high-stakes decision-making in an unpredictable world. The setting is 1000 BC. The Shang dynasty is crumbling. It is a time of absolute decadence, ritual sacrifice, and a ruling class that has lost its connection to the earth and its people. King Wen of the Zhou sits in the prison of Yoli. Outside those stone walls, a civilization is in its death throes. Inside, Wen is calm. Why? Because he understands something we have forgotten in our age of instant data and predictive algorithms. He understands that the universe does not move in a straight line. It moves in cycles. It breathes. It expands and it contracts. Did you know that the binary system that powers every computer, every smartphone, and every AI model you use today was directly inspired by the I Ching? When Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz, the co-inventor of calculus, saw the 64 hexagrams of the I Ching in the 17th century, he realized he was looking at a 3,000-year-old version of ones and zeros. The ancient Chinese didn't have silicon chips, but they had something more powerful, an architectural map of change itself. Think about the weight of that. While the West was still centuries away from organized philosophy, the Zhou were calculating the probability of failure based on the breadth of the situation. They called it the Book of Changes, but a better translation for our modern ears would be the logic of flux. We live in a world obsessed with disruption. We think we are the first generation to deal with rapid shifts in technology and social order. We are not. The transition from the Shang to the Zhou was a disruption so violent it makes the dot-com bubble or the rise of AI look like a ripple in a pond. King Wen used the I Ching to navigate a revolution. He used it to build a dynasty that would last 800 years, the longest in Chinese history. If this system could build an 800-year empire from a prison cell, imagine what it can do for your 3-year business plan. The I Ching is built on 64 hexagrams, 6-line figures that represent every possible state of existence. But it's not the figures themselves that matter. It's the change between them. The core message of the oracle is this: if you do not know where you are in the cycle, your best strategy will always be your worst mistake. If you plant seeds in the dead of winter because you have a vision of a garden, you aren't a leader. You're a fool. The I Ching teaches you how to feel the temperature of the season before you ever step outside. Let us look at the first core teaching. Hexagram 1, the creative. The symbol is 6 solid, unbroken lines. Pure energy, pure action. The source text says, Hidden Dragon, do not act. This is the most counterintuitive advice for any high achiever. You have the idea. You have the funding. You have the talent. You are the creative. You are the dragon. And the oracle looks you in the eye and says, stay in the water. Do not show your face. In plain language, this means that potential energy is more powerful than kinetic energy. When a project is in its hidden dragon phase, any move you make toward the public eye is a leak of power. Think of Apple under Steve Jobs. Before the iPhone was announced in 2007, It was a hidden dragon for years. There were rumors, yes, but the internal discipline was absolute. They didn't build in public. They didn't seek early feedback from the masses. They waited until the dragon was fully formed, and only then did they allow it to fly. The actionable principle is this: silence is the container of genius. To speak or act too early is to bleed your project to death before it can breathe. Now, we move to the opposite. Hexagram 29, the abysmal. Water. This is the hexagram of danger. The text says, if you are sincere, you have success in your heart, and whatever you do succeeds. This sounds like a greeting card, but in the context of the I Ching, it is a survival tactic. The abysmal is a ravine. It is a pit. It is the moment your company realizes its core product is obsolete, or the moment a scandal hits. Water doesn't fight the ravine. Water fills the ravine and then flows over it. It stays sincere to its own nature. It doesn't try to become a rock to stop the fall. It stays fluid. Consider Netflix in 2011. They were the kings of DVD by mail. Then, the abysmal appeared, the shift to streaming. They didn't try to fix the DVD business to make it survive. They threw themselves into the ravine of streaming, even when it tanked their stock price by 75% in 1 year. They were sincere to the reality of the market. They filled the pit, and they flowed over it. The actionable principle. In times of crisis, do not defend your old position. Become the crisis, flow with the change, and use the momentum of the fall to carry you to the next level. Did you know that the I Ching was the only book Mao Zedong carried with him during the Long March? Even the man who tried to dismantle ancient China couldn't let go of its strategy. We come to hexagram 44, coming to meet. This is perhaps the most dangerous hexagram for anyone in a position of power. The text says, the maiden is powerful. One should not marry such a maiden. This is not about women or marriage in the literal sense. In the symbolic language of the sage, the maiden represents a small, seemingly insignificant element that enters a system from below. It is this small thing that has the power to corrupt the great. Think of a toxic hire in a high-performing startup, or think of technical debt in a software project. It starts as one small shortcut, one maiden you allow to meet your project. It seems harmless. It's just one line of messy code. It's just one employee who's a bit of an egomaniac, but gets results. The I Ching warns that because this element is yielding and attractive, you will let it in. And once it is in, it will eventually displace the core values of the entire structure. Look at the fall of Enron. It didn't start with a multi-billion-dollar fraud. It started with small, clever accounting innovations that were allowed to meet the main business. They were attractive because they showed growth. By the time the leadership realized the maiden had taken over the house was already on fire. The actionable principle. The smallest compromise of your core values is not a minor detail. It is a seed of total collapse that must be uprooted the moment it appears. Look at your phone. Count the apps you haven't opened in a month. Every one of them is a maiden you allowed to meet your attention. They are the small things eating your great life. We reach hexagram 60, limitation. This is the secret of the strategist who wins with fewer resources. The text says, galloping limitation must not be persevered in. But where limitation is pleasant, it brings success. We live in an era that hates limits. We want unlimited data, unlimited growth, unlimited options. The I Ching says that unlimited options lead to galloping limitation, a state where you are so spread out you have no power anywhere. Real strategy is the art of choosing what not to do. Look at Southwest Airlines in its prime. They had a pleasant limitation. They only flew Boeing 737s. They didn't serve meals. They didn't have hub-and-spoke routes. By limiting their options, they created a machine that was more efficient than any competitor who tried to do everything. Their limits were their leverage. If you are trying to be everything to everyone, you are currently in a state of galloping limitation. You are exhausted because you have no boundaries. The actionable principle: success is not the result of having the most resources, but of concentrating the resources you have within the tightest possible boundaries. Stop. Breathe. In the next 60 seconds, 3,000 years of history are going to collide with your Monday morning. The I Ching is not a book you read. It is a mirror you look into. When you ask the oracle a question, you aren't asking a ghost for a prediction. You are asking your own subconscious to map the patterns you are too distracted to see. King Wen in his dungeon didn't have a crystal ball. He had a deep, terrifyingly accurate understanding of how systems fail and how they thrive. He knew that the Shang dynasty was falling because it had ignored the maiden of corruption and forgotten the pleasant limitation of just rule. He knew that his own hidden dragon phase would eventually lead to the flying dragon of a new era. Now, we move from the temple to the street. How do you apply the Book of Changes this week? Not next year. Not eventually. This week. Here are your 3 actionable protocols. Protocol 1. The Hour of Observation. In the I Ching, contemplation, hexagram 20, is the act of looking at the world like a wind blowing over the earth. It sees everything but touches nothing. This week, I want you to take 1 hour. No phone, no notebook, no to-do list. Go to a place where your business or your life happens. A coffee shop, your office, a park. Just watch. Do not judge. Do not try to solve anything. Look for the breath of the environment. Who is tired? Where is the friction? What is this small thing that everyone is ignoring? You will be shocked at how much data you've been missing because you were too busy acting. The sage monk knows that an hour of pure observation is worth a month of misguided effort. Protocol 2. The hexagram audit. Take your most important project right now. Identify which of the 4 stages we discussed it is currently in. Is it a hidden dragon, needing more silence and protection? Is it in the abysmal, requiring you to stop fighting the crisis and start flowing with it? Is it being corrupted by a maiden, a small compromise that is growing? Or is it suffering from a lack of limitation? Once you identify the phase, you must align your actions with that phase, even if it feels wrong. If you are in Hidden Dragon, cancel the press release. If you are in Limitation, cut 3 features from your product. Alignment is the only way to harness the momentum of the universe. To fight the phase is to fight the ocean. You will only drown. Protocol 3. The Yielding Response. This week, when someone confronts you, when a competitor moves against you, or when a subordinate fails, do not meet force with force. This is the teaching of hexagram 11. Peace. Peace comes when the high places itself below the low. Instead of defending your ego, ask a question. Instead of pushing back, step aside and let their momentum carry them past you. If a client complains, don't explain why they are wrong. Say, tell me more about how this affects you. By yielding, you gain the superior position. You become the water, and they become the rock that eventually wears itself down against your fluidity. If you do these 3 things, you will be doing more for your strategy than any Master of Business Administration degree could ever teach you. You will be operating on the frequency of the Zhou. King Wen eventually left that dungeon. He didn't escape by force. He didn't bribe the guards. He waited for the cycle to turn. He knew that the tyrant's own galloping limitation would eventually create a vacuum, and he was ready to fill it. He died before the final victory, but his son, King Wu, finished the work. They didn't just win a war, they established a way. The I Ching is still here because the human heart hasn't changed in 3,000 years. We still fear the dark. We still crave the light. And we still make the mistake of thinking we can control the wind. You cannot control the wind. You can only set your sails. The oracle doesn't tell you what the wind will do. It tells you how to be the kind of sailor who doesn't care which way it blows, because you know how to use every gust to get home. If you found the weight of history useful today, there is a link in the description to the translation of the I Ching I recommend for strategists. Our next episode will dive into the art of war, but through a lens you have never seen, the strategy of the defeated. Don't miss it, because in this cycle of change, the defeated are simply the victors of tomorrow who haven't realized it yet. If you choose to stay blind to the cycles, that is your choice. But do not complain when the winter comes and you are still wearing your summer clothes. The superior man sets his life in order by examining the movements of the stars. The I Ching,